So, today I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a comic review of a comic series that is basically a series that is a classic. I wanted to do a classic comic review. Sometimes I just like to do that. And today's we're going to be talking about Thor and the Eternals, the Celestial Saga. So Thor and the Eternals, the Celestial Saga is... it lives up to the Saga name. This comic is a beast, as you can see. This is a 20... counting the annual that shows up in here, this is a 20-part comic. This is a 20-issue book rolled up into one, and it is $40 if you're interested. And this is written by Roy Thomas with artwork by... I forgot the artist's name. It was also co-written by Ralph Macchio, not that Ralph Macchio. With also help by Mark Rinwald, artwork by John Buscema, with also Walt Simonson. This is before the Walt Simonson took over writing. This is like a little before that, but this was like Walt Simonson's first few forays into Thor. Yeah. So, Thor and the Eternals. This was actually... funny enough, this is how the Eternals kind of integrated more with the Marvel Universe, because for the longest time after Jack Kirby created the Eternals were kind of like nebulously in the Marvel Universe. This comic was basically a way for the Eternals to be a part of like the mainstay Marvel Universe with Thor. And if any character was really going to like hang out with the Marvel characters, if any character was going to bring them over, it was going to be Thor. Also, this comic once again proves it's never too early for a retcon, because they do retcon in the annual of Thor going on an adventure with the Eternals when they first arrived on Earth. And yeah, if you didn't know about the Eternals, this does like an okay job of letting you in on what the Eternals are, or who they are. And the Deviants and the Celestials, but I think it was more like Roy Thomas really wanted to use the Celestials, and was like, well, if I have the Celestials, I gotta fucking bring the Eternals too. But yeah, I like the Eternals, but I don't want to, like, this comic has basically made me go, I think I've reached this, and, well, actually no. This comic, the Neil Gaiman comic that Chris sent me, once again, thanks brother, and I want to read one more Eternals thing that I'm curious about, because I do think this was a perfect fit, is Karen Gillan's Eternals series. That's kind of the thing I wanted to read. One of the things I want to read, like modern day Eternals. And then I'm like, because I don't, like, I'm curious about the Eternals, but I'm not like, ooh, I want to read more about the Eternals. Because even as a Marvel fan, who really knows the full extent? Like, we all know about the Celestials because, yeah, they're fucking cool. Anyway, so I'm getting off topic. So Thor is exiled from Asgard. He's kind of, him and Odin are on outs, which is your typical Marvel, you know, how you basically do a Marvel storyline or a Marvel event with each character is by the numbers. Okay, for example, Iron Man. Iron Man's easy. Iron Man feels depressed. He is attacked. His company's being taken away from him. He builds an armor. He more or less burns bridges with everyone around him when he goes paranoid. And then he realizes, oh, I needed my family all along, and builds a new armor to represent that. Rinse and fucking repeat. Captain America. Captain America is worried about the American politics. He encounters a villain who's kind of harping on that. And Captain America has to restore faith in the American populace. Rinse and repeat. Thor is basically like, Thor's having family problems, and he's going on an adventure and he goes on an adventure and eventually reconciles with Odin. Rinse and repeat. That's basically the emphasis of like every major Marvel story for the big three. Spider-Man, I don't even think I need to say how to do a proper Spider-Man story. Anywho, that was a joke, by the way. I'm not being serious. That's just a joke. I know there's more complexity. There's much more to that. I'm just having a little fun. But anyway, let's get back to the comic. The comic itself is, like I said, a monster of a storyline where Thor discovers that Arishem, the judge, one of the leaders of the Celestials, has begun his 50-year studying of the 50-year judgment of Earth. And Thor is like, oh shit, I gotta stop the Celestials. So the whole story is Thor and the Eternals working together to stop the Celestials, and along the way, Thor incurs the wrath of his father and the Greek gods too. I really like this story. It's a lot of fun. I will say, though, classic Thor is a bit of a slog to read, and I'm not saying because it's boring. I'm talking more about the syntax that Thor uses. I'm talking more that Thor's like, forsooth, doth mine ass get kicked here? I don't know. That's kind of the words. It's very much, and I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not in any way saying in any way, shape, or form I'm saying that's bad. I'm just saying it's very dialogue heavy. But what I like about Roy Thomas is that Roy Thomas not only makes dialogue heavy stuff, but he also makes great action sequences, and he knows how to set up a panel. And the artwork in here is always fun to see. And it does give you enough of the Eternals, and it really does, Roy Thomas really does pay a lot of homage to Jack Kirby in here, who was alive at the time. I'm not saying he died at this point, but, he does, treat Jack Kirby's Eternals with a lot of respect and a lot of care for these characters. This is also, if you're expecting, Thor to team up with anyone else outside the Eternals, no. This is called Thor and the Eternals, not Thor, Avengers, and the Eternals are in the background. There is, it is an epic story, and in doing so, there's a lot to go on here. They talk about the Deviants, they talk about I also like how they bring up the fact that, yeah, the Deviants were based off of gods, even though there were gods in the Marvel Universe, and they bring that up, of the Eternals who kind of, stole names from the gods, and the gods are not, especially the Greek gods, are really pissed off about that. It's a really fun epic. It also delves a lot of, old... The first half of the book is more or less Thor and the Eternals, fuck, we gotta stop Ereshkigal. We have to stop the 50-year judgment of Earth. So... that was kind of, Thor and Thor and the Eternals, shit, we gotta stop that. The second half is Thor going on a quest that involves a lot of, old Norse tales, the story of Fafnir the dragon, or Sigurd, or, if you're, if you really love, Norse mythology, you're really gonna love the second half of this storyline. I think it's a lot of fun. This is very much, if you want to read, some fun classic Marvel and really want to dig into something big, and are also curious about the Eternals, I would say this might work as a gateway to the Eternals with a familiar character there. Because you're hey, Thor's here, I can get behind this. It's not but I still suggest Neil Gaiman's Eternals run as another major gateway. This is another good... I would suggest this one because, A, it really shows a lot of what Jack Kirby wanted to do with the Eternals, and with the help of Roy Thomas, and we have a familiar character kind of as our eyes going into to this world of the Eternals and the Celestials. I think this is a really good book, but I do understand that this is kind of imposing. This is a really imposing book, and it is $40. So I would say try to find it on discount. But I do suggest this if you are curious about reading some classic Marvel and some classic Eternals, and especially some classic Thor. So yeah. So there you go, guys. That is my review of Thor and the Eternals, the Celestial Saga. So yeah, if you've read this book, just comment below, let me know. And once again, if you haven't already, go check out my Patreon in the link below. And other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.